This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
Interesting little game coming up tonight to wrap up week number 4 in the NFL. It is the Seahawks at the Giants, and a lot of movement in the market throughout this week, which we're going to break down today to get you ready for this game. Ryan Williams stopping on by for this show, talk about his insights on this game. We'll break down some player props as well to get you ready for Monday night. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and on FanDuel Research. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a managing editor of digital media for FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every Monday by Ryan Williams. Check him out on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. Ryan, tough week for your Bears, obviously, but we were talking before the show, like the consolation is you now control the first 2 picks in the NFL draft because the Bears lost, but so did the Panthers. So I think that it's not the best case scenario because best case scenario is the Bears play really well, but Justin Fields looked good. He had a good game, played pretty well. You saw the guys you want to be the pieces for whatever the future is, and DJ Moore, Cole Kmet playing well too. So, like, I know that sucks. I know that's not fun, but like, I think there's at least some consolation in there, right?
Yeah, yes, and no. The consolation is, I guess if you put in yourself in that position, right? I think that, For me, I was a bigger CJ Stroud guy over Bryce Young. I think they might have taken Bryce Young at the number 1 pick. Now, obviously, we're only 4 weeks in, can't see, but like Caleb Williams looks so legit. So, I mean, to be able to set yourselves up with 2 chances to go and get a guy like that, I think that makes you feel good. The thing about it is that we have not been able to develop any type of quarterback in my lifetime and, going further back at that position. So it makes you nervous to think, okay, if Caleb Williams looks to see, wait, I'm going to go to Chicago and they just did that with Justin. Nah, I'm going to stay in college and get some more money and wait it out. So, we'll see. I think that you definitely have to make some heads roll here in the next, I dare I say weeks, days, because you have a short week against Washington, and like an 0-5 start just means somebody's got to go. So,
And I think the benefit is they have not developed a quarterback, but I feel like Caleb Williams in that case might be kind of a recruiting chip for a very good offense coordinator, where you're like, okay, here's your shot. You can mold this guy to what you want. Come join us. And I think that can kind of work both ways, where it's like, okay. I mean, this is a terrible example, but like, that's why Urban Meyer came out of retirement, was to coach Trevor Lawrence. And like, that didn't work out, but like, there is that angle of it. So hopefully Caleb Williams can help draw someone in for the Bears. You deserve it after all these years, try to find someone to lead that franchise. But it was good to see Fields, have some solid plays. Yeah.
It was good to see the offense look like an offense. I think Luke Getsy saved himself another week or two with how he was designing and calling plays there. Some questionable things happened in the fourth quarter, but I think, you have a lead at home. Running the football and trying to, not give the Broncos the ball back when your defense couldn't stop anybody was the right move. It just, it just was not enough to be able to bring home a W. So tough loss at home. But again, we just maybe play for 2024 and let that be the case.
Again, that's the nice thing to have in your back pocket, is to be able to root for that and root against the Panthers too. See how things play out there. We're going to spin things forward and talk about Monday night here in just a second, get you ready for the Seahawks and the Giants. We'll talk about the movement in this market we've seen throughout this week, talk about some player props and much more to get you ready for this game. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. If you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We appreciate those of you who have done so already. And of course, all these Covering the Spread shows do also go up on FanDuel TV Plus, which you can get on Amazon Fire, Apple TV, or Roku. You can also watch FanDuel TV Plus by going to FanDuel.com/watch and logging in with your FanDuel account to watch Up and Adams live, or watching Covering the Spread, the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, all in the same place as well. Also, quick announcement. We'll have later on this week, Primetime Tom had been previewing Thursday Night Football, and it seems like you all liked it. So we're going to bring it back for Sunday Night Football as well. That'll go up on Saturday mornings from this week until the end of the season. So 2 episodes of Primetime Tom per week now here on Covering the Spread. That is here on the Covering the Spread podcast feed and FanDuel TV Plus. So make sure you're subscribed to get all of those. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, totals, and more. So visit FanDuel.com and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland, 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look now at this game here, Ryan, between the Seahawks and the Giants. For right now, Seahawks are 1.5-point favorites. Total in this game is 47.5, and the Seahawks actually open as underdogs here. I think they were plus 110 when I got it on Tuesday, but they're now minus 124 on the money line. So let's start there. Do you think that movement in Seattle's favor is valid?
Yeah, I think it's valid. Even with them going on the road here to the Meadowlands, Gino's return to the Meadowlands. We might add from his time at the Jets. So always a fun one to talk about, Jim. I'm surprised that I'm bringing that up to you for the first time.
You're right.
You're usually always on top of that. But without Saquon Barkley being here and just the way the Giants have been playing at it, it makes sense now when you're looking at trends and things of that nature. Like Daniel Jones has really struggled in games that are not played on Sundays. I believe he's 0-12 in his career when you factor in Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays, Sunday nights and Mondays in games that are essentially in prime time straight up. So, that all being said, yeah, it makes it seem like that Seattle should be favored here. They are getting Jamal Adams back on defense. It looks like as he practiced all week. And I think they just are the better team as it stands right now. But this is a home game for the Giants. It does feel like, that plus 1.5, we could get some tricky things if Daniel Jones is able to lean on his legs and probably get some of these guys involved, Darren Waller being one of them. The line is not one that I'm willing to kind of put my hat on at this moment in time right now. If you had to tell me to pick either side, I would probably lean the money line, just in case, some kind of weird stuff happens like we just saw on Sunday night with the Jets and the Chiefs. But I do think the 47.5 on the over total is a little bit interesting. Even without Saquon Barkley, we got some playmakers on the Seattle side of the ball. We got a Giants defense that gives up, some points, in the Seattle defense that has given up some points as well earlier to start this season. So if we can get, a little bit more out of Daniel Jones without Saquon being there, just with them having to do a lot, then I feel like we could get an ugly matchup here that ends up leading itself to points.
Yeah, so 47.5 is the total right now. Over is minus 105. I've got this total at 45.5. And I think that I get why that's there. I also, it is one of those games that has that feel of like it could get gross and be high scoring as a result of that. So I think that does make a lot of sense. I cannot believe I overlooked the Geno revenge game against the Giants. Not only is it the revenge game against the stadium, revenge game against the Giants, I dropped the ball there. I'm so happy and excited about this game now. Thank you for reminding me, Ryan, of how sacred this game will be. I had Seattle favored by 2.5 in this game. And it's partly like the Giants do get a downgrade for Saquon. That does matter, both in terms of their passing efficiency and their rushing efficiency, but more so, I think I think Seattle's offense is pretty good, and I'm pretty skeptical of the Giants' offense. Now, the counterpoint there would be that neither defense, I mean, the Seahawks defense is not great by any means either, but
right.
The Seahawks look good for most of last year. I know they tailed off down the stretch, but they played well this year. Even with, I know that Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf have played every game, but they've been in and out of a lot of those games. Like they've missed stretches of different games. And the Seattle offense has still been good. Had them projected to rank 11th entering this week after accounting for injuries on each team. So that's not a bad offense. Whereas the Giants were, after accounting for the Saquon injury, let's see here, they were 20th. So defense definitely does favor Seattle. I think, to me, I feel good about the win I gotten with Seattle. I know that for sure. I think if I were betting it now, I would still feel okay with the Seattle money line at -126, but I think that the market has moved enough where I'm probably out there if I had not gotten it previously. But it's an interesting game for sure. Now let's talk here about some player props. Second straight game with no Saquon Barkley, and Matt Breida played a lot of snaps in week number 4. Not a lot beyond that, though. So any player props you're eyeing here for Giants and Seahawks on the Giants side of things?
Yeah, the Giants side of things. The Giants side of things. The Giants side of things, tongue twister. Makes it really tough to have any credence or merit. I mean, the backfield is just absolutely atrocious, and like the names that I'm seeing for the backfield for like Detroit for the Giants is like, I didn't even know these. Like Gary Brightwell is still out there, shooting it up. Matt Breida. These are not names that you want to bet on. And even from the wide receiver court, I would love Jalen Hyatt to be able to get going a little bit more. This guy's just got big play potential all over him, but they haven't, he's not been able to usurp Darius Slayton as of yet as that deep field target. I guess Darius Slayton is a little bit interesting. It is surprising to me that he has the most favored odds of any wide receiver to score a touchdown. I do like Isaiah Hodgins a little bit in this matchup. Seattle has been one to kind of give up big plays. I think Jamal Adams being back maybe does hinder Darren Waller's outlook a little bit. So I think there has to be somebody, especially if I'm expecting this game to get to 48 points, if I'm expecting the running backs to not be able to get going, I got to lean on somebody. And so Isaiah Hodgins, he's 4-1 to score a touchdown. His receiving props, you get him at 23.5 receiving yards. And he's going to be out there on the field a lot. So I do like that on the Giants side. Another thing that I'm looking at here, which kind of surprised me a little bit when you're just looking at, okay, there's no Saquon Barkley. Like, what can we maybe predict Daniel Jones's rushing outlook to be? Mm-hmm. So rushing yards for him is at 35.5. I absolutely love that. On primetime games, he's actually, had some decent rushing totals in his career. He's actually only scored 1 touchdown, not played on a Sunday through the ground, which I found very interesting. So when you're looking at his anytime touchdown prop, I still might be able to dabble on that just a little bit, but he is, you're only getting a 1-to-1 there at +100. Yeah. So I think the books have got that appropriately.
Yeah, the 35.5 is interesting because if you're missing a good offensive piece, you might be more inclined to lean into the quarterback rush game. I think most teams want to avoid that when they can, but I don't think the Giants can when there's no Saquon Barkley. So we've seen Jones be very adept at that. He has just the 1 touchdown. Would have had the second. That was the game where he tripped. The right. Turf Monster game that was in prime time, so that would have been touchdown number 2, but couldn't quite get there. I agree with you that the anytime touchdown number is sportsbooks know what they're doing. That on that number 35.5. I think if you want to get in on Daniel Jones, that's probably where I'd want to go. And I think the Hodgins one too, 23.5 is not bad for him. Especially if we kind of assume Tariq Woolen looks like he's fully healthy again, and he'd be more likely to get Slayton than Hodgins. So I think that is also pretty interesting. We've seen Darren Waller's numbers come down a lot. I can't buy in yet at 49.5. But like maybe if they keep coming down in future weeks, I can get in on Waller and get some props there. Let's talk about the Seattle side of things where they're pretty healthy. They've got DK Metcalf good to go for this game. Tyler Lockett's good to go. The running backs are, working in tandem, kind of the way they thought. So what are you seeing on the Seattle side of things for tonight?
Yeah, let's start on the running back side of things and just talk about Kenneth Walker here, who's been the guy that's kind of, separated himself in this backfield from Zach Charbonnet, the rookie. And his number comes in at 64.5 on rushing yards. Absolutely love this number. They've given it up to the number one back. The Giants defense, that is, to number one running backs in the backfields every game this season so far. So you enter in Kenneth Walker here if Seattle's able to get that lead on the road and lean on. We know what they want to do. They want to run the ball whenever they can. I do like the receiver props, across the board. DK Metcalf going against a man coverage defense. A lot's going to be talked about that. He comes in at 65.5, but even Tyler Lockett, who comes in at 52.5, he's kind of the forgotten child. And we know that Tyler Lockett has these boom games that just kind of exists out there in the ether when nobody's kind of thinking about him. And so I love getting Tyler Lockett at 52.5. I do think there's even some merit at Jackson Smith and Jigba. I was surprised to see his line come in at close to 30, 29.5 for him. I think this is kind of like one of those games where you kind of maybe see him get going a little bit just to give the rookie more reps in a favorable matchup. So he's a guy I definitely want to keep my eye on. But I think right now it starts for me at Tyler Lockett. His over on receptions is 4.5. I'd be willing to take that, be willing to take his line. And then I'm definitely looking at getting some action on Kenneth Walker. Even Tyler Lockett, I think plus 160 anytime touchdown is nice. He's got 6 red zone targets on the year, which I believe leads the team, if I'm not mistaken. So you love seeing that from a guy like that. And we do have some tight ends on the injury report. Noah Fant is banged up. Will Disley's banged up. And so instead of going to Cody Parkinson, let's go to Tyler Lockett here and hope that reaps dividends for us.
Get Kobe Parkinson on the stream just so like we can see his hair, but then don't throw it to him. Get him on the field so we can see the hair, but then throw elsewhere. 52.5 for Lockett is really good. I'm kind of surprised by that number. And also the 4.5 you mentioned for Lockett, over 4.5 receptions is only minus 102. So I think both those are super intriguing. Looking at the target numbers so far this year for Tyler Lockett, he left that week 1 game for a pretty long amount of time. But that since then, 10 targets in week 2, 7 targets in week number 3. We know he's a very efficient player, catches everything that goes his way effectively. He's had 2, 1, and 2 deep targets in that time. And Lockett, as you said, does lead in red zone targets. He has 6, which is 38% of the team's red zone targets so far this year. So I think that Lockett in general is probably underpriced across the board as far as the markets go. So I think if we're of the ones we talked about so far, Ryan, the Lockett markets are the one that definitely grabbed my attention most.
Yeah, I absolutely love Lockett, especially if he's, just from, the chatter and things that I'm hearing, like just people are on Metcalf for today. And it's not wrong, Jim. Like that's what I, take. But when we're talking about, odds and when we're talking about, being able to reap when the field's going one way, I think, looking at Lockett definitely has some favorable, he's going to pay off in a favorable way if he hits.
Yeah. Especially when the gap between him and Metcalf is as large as it is. Like Metcalf's awesome, but like the gap is a little bit larger than you think it might be, or maybe deserves to be there. Any other props you like for tonight's game, Ryan?
I think those are really the main ones that I'm thinking about. I do think it's interesting, like Noah Fant, the tight end position I just wanted to talk about because Kobe Parkinson is at, plus 550 for an anytime touchdown. Like, if for some reason, and I didn't know to the extent of the injuries, I just knew they were both on the injury report. But like if Will Disley ends up playing, he's plus 850 to score a touchdown. Like I think that's worth just having a little skin on that because the odds are just, he's sitting out there with Eric Gray and Lawrence Cager. And you know what I'm saying? And like we know that they're going to, be somewhat involved because they run some 12 personnel from time to time. So I do think that that's interesting there. Other than that, Yeah, there's nobody else in the rushing market that I'm looking for. I do think so. We saw this last night with Patrick Mahomes. So we are getting road quarterbacks throwing interceptions at a kind of crazy rate here to kind of start the season. And so Geno Smith, I believe, is plus money to throw an interception. Of course, we want to talk about his return in a positive way because the prodigal son, but plus 116 to kind of throw an interception here against a defense that plays man but can be aggressive at times with Martingale on the other side. Like, I do think there's some interesting merit to take that. I mean, Mahomes just threw 2, should have had 3 last night. So Geno plus money, I think we can be willing to take a shot on that.
I feel a little betrayed, Ryan, you would do this, but you're right. I think plus 116, like, my wallet may not be betrayed, but that's okay. Plus 116 for Geno to throw a pick is not bad at all. Other one that caught my attention when you're talking about Disley, plus 850. The good thing with that is if he's inactive, you get that back. You get your stake back. So that's one thing to remember with Will Disley, but also Jake Bobo is plus 850. I find that somewhat interesting. Okay. Bobo's snaps across the first 3 games, 24%, 25%, 41%. He did score this past week. Not taking that, but just I find it interesting that Jake Bobo is out there. He and Disley both kind of interesting based on injuries for tonight's game. That is all that we have here for today on covering the spread, breaking down the Seahawks and the Giants. But we are back here once again tomorrow morning. Ryan will be with us to take a look at the futures market. We'll have to might talk Bengals again. I don't know. It's been a rough go. I had the Bengals money line yesterday, which did not go great. We'll talk about futures market, and then I'll give my first look into week number 5 as well, all right here on the same podcast feed. So go search for Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe, and if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating as well. And don't forget to check us out over on FanDuel TV Plus. Ryan, you can find him on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. It was a pleasure having you on here once again for today. Enjoy Monday Night Football. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow.
Absolutely. Likewise, Jim. See you tomorrow.
All right. And I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow FanDuel Research at FanDuel Research. Want to thank you all for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your bets for tonight. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.